Shanna here. Welcome to my channel all about finding joy while learning to live well with autoimmune disease. I'm so glad to have you here. So today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm sharing my story with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So I'm telling you a little bit about what symptoms I had before I was diagnosed, how I got diagnosed, and what I've done since. As I share my story with Hashimoto's, please keep in mind that just as every autoimmune disease is different, the same autoimmune disease can look differently in different people. So I know quite a few people with Hashimoto's, and we all have some things in common, and we all have some big differences. So please just keep in mind that this is not the only way that Hashimoto's can look. Hashimoto's can look differently in different people. Knowing what I know now, I can look back years and years and years and see early symptoms, even from my late teens, early 20s, but those symptoms didn't really bother me. I just kind of thought, oh, that's kind of weird, whatever. So when I was pregnant with my daughter, she is 14 years old now. When I was pregnant with her, I got preeclampsia and I had some other health issues, but those kind of just cleared up after I had her, and I actually bounced back pretty quickly from her pregnancy. With that said, when she was 2 years old, actually on her second birthday, I gave birth to our son, who is 12, and during his pregnancy, I had a lot more issues show up. I had some pains and some issues they didn't understand. I had gestational diabetes. I had recurring UTIs. Well, we just figured, my husband and I was just really, really sick when I was pregnant with him, and my husband and I couldn't really find answers to what was wrong with me. But on the day that I had him, I was so happy because I thought I'm going to be feeling better, and I have this adorable new baby boy, and I have my 2-year-old, and I'm so excited. Well, within a couple of days, I was rushed by ambulance back into the ER, where I stayed at the hospital for a number of days. It turns out I had a UTI that turned into a kidney infection that turned into sepsis. So I was septic, and I was on heavy antibiotics in the hospital, and then I went home on a PICC line, which is like IV antibiotics, for a number of weeks. So I'm so incredibly grateful for doctors and for modern medicine. I am alive today because of modern medicine. The doctors in the hospital could not tell me at one point if I was going to make it through the night. They thought I was going to, but they couldn't tell me. And so I'm so grateful for modern medicine. So after having my son, it did take me some time to start to be able to function again. I did struggle with postpartum too after I had him, which was that's a whole nother story. If you have experienced that, or if you are experiencing that, my heart goes out to you. It was so hard. And then in the years after having my son, I just kind of gradually had more and more symptoms pop up. Things like joint pain, my hair was falling out, fatigue, brain fog, and a lot of that I chalked up to like just being a new mom. I just thought, it's just part of the no sleeping. It's just part of, is this what being an adult feels like? Maybe like we were dealing with some financial stress at the time, some work stress. I was working from home part-time doing accounting. I had these 2 little babies. I just thought this is just life. And the symptoms kind of started getting worse and worse very gradually over the course of years. And so it's like one of those things that just kind of like sneaks up on you. Like you didn't mean to let that happen, but it just kind of happened, and I was distracted and busy. And then as my kids grew and grew, I started homeschooling them, which is something I didn't really plan on doing. I just kind of fell into it, and it's ended up being a beautiful journey, but it is a lot of work. And so I just kind of, as my symptoms increased, I just kind of wrote it off as, I'm just a busy mom. I'm just busy, and I would just push through and push through and push through. And I will say that I struggled with it because I prided myself on being like strong and independent, and I'm so strong, and my body kept feeling weaker and weaker very gradually, and I would just push through harder, push through harder. There was a point a number of years ago where I was having joint pain and brain fog, and my hair was falling out, and I opened up about it to my mom, and she's like, one day she called me and she's like, hey, I was watching Dr. Oz, and they were talking about, about going gluten-free, and I think it could help your joint pain. I think it could help some of your symptoms. And so at this point I'm like, yeah, sure. We didn't have good like healthcare coverage. I didn't want to go to a doctor and pay for like, extra testing. By this time, I think I had started going because thyroid issues do run in my family, in both sides of my family. And so it was on my radar. And so I'd go into the doctor and I'd be like, I'm having these symptoms. I'd go in probably like once a year. Towards the end, when I was about rock bottom, I think I'd go in twice a year, and I'd tell them I'm having these symptoms. And I love my doctor and I trust my doctor and he's great. And so he'd like run some tests, and I don't know anything about Western medicine. I don't know anything about tests. And so I'd be like, okay, well, like I'd trust him. And he'd be like, okay, I ran these thyroid tests. You're fine. You're okay. Like, okay, I guess, you know, and I would look normal and my weight was, you know, okay. You know, I'd tell him, hey, I'm hanging on to a couple, you know, like 10 extra pounds or so. I know I am. I'm working out really hard and I can't lose it. And he'd be like, you're fine, you know? And so there were signs there, but little did I know he wasn't running a full thyroid panel. He wasn't running an antibodies panel. He was simply running a TSH test, and his range was very liberal. And so you really want to get a full thyroid panel if you can. You really want to look at your thyroid antibodies, the TPO test, and he was just doing, and if they are only doing a TSH test, be sure that they're using more of like a functional range. So if you want more information about what testing you want to have run and just more information about Hashimoto's, I love Izabella Wentz for this. Her website has a lot of information on it. She has like an article about, well, the different stages of Hashimoto's, what to get tested, functional ranges for testing. This is also a great book. I have not read the whole thing, but it does have some great information in it. So she's a great resource. Anyway, so I went gluten-free and I did notice improvements in my health. My joint pain went away, my hair stopped falling out, and going gluten-free really helped me for like a few years there. With that said, some of my symptoms did start popping back up even though I stuck gluten-free. Like I was like to a T gluten-free no matter what. Like I wouldn't cheat on that. But some of my symptoms started, you know, coming back. I had a hip injury and I had a hip surgery. After this, we moved, there was like some work stress. We had some like stressful events, and I wasn't the best at managing stress back then. And even though I was gluten-free, I wouldn't say that I was eating that healthy. I would try to eat mostly what I thought was healthy. Well, so the gluten-free thing helped for, you know, a few years, and then all these symptoms started coming back. And as they did, I started realizing more and more over the years that something's not right. And I go into my doctor and he'd tell me I was fine. And as soon as I got the phone call that I was fine, I would kind of be happy because I didn't want anything to be wrong with me, but then I kind of felt crazy because I knew something was wrong. I knew something was off. And so it was just this like really weird, you know, feeling. So finally in 2017, my health got pretty bad. I was experiencing a lot of symptoms, and by the end of 2017, I was at the point where I struggled, well, to barely, you know, function. I'd spent years pushing and pushing and pushing. I couldn't push anymore. My body basically said, enough, I'm done. And it was really hard, and I was scared that I was dying. I was scared that, you know, I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know where to go for help. I loved my primary doctor, but I didn't know what to do. And so I turned to a naturopath, and I didn't even know what a naturopath was until earlier in 2017 when somebody had mentioned it to me, and I'm like, okay. So I Googled a naturopath in my area, and I went and saw her, and she did a whole slew of tests. And and she did find out some things, like my body wasn't absorbing electrolytes, it wasn't absorbing minerals, it wasn't absorbing nutrients, I had all kinds of like digestive issues. Some of the symptoms that I had at the end of 2017, when I was about at my rock bottom, it was things like brain fog. I would get daily low-grade fevers, joint pain, muscle pain. My worst symptom was what I can only explain as it felt like a storm going on inside of my body. I would just like lay there just like miserable, like I couldn't, you know, and then I would get sensitive to light, and I'd get sensitive to sound, and it was just really hard. And then I'd get muscle pain, I'd get heart palpitations, I'd get chest pain, I would get you know, fatigue. I don't know if I mentioned that, horrible fatigue. Cold intolerance. I was freezing cold all the time. My son, he would feel my hands, and he'd just be like, why are you so cold, Mom? And later on, after I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, he'd call them Hashi hands. So he'd say, oh, Mom, you have Hashi hands. And then a few months after my diagnosis, I'd been on the autoimmune protocol, the AIP, for a few months, and my symptoms started to clear up. And he'd be like, oh, one day he was like, Mom, you don't have Hashi hands. And it was like made my heart so happy that he knew that I was doing better and that he was just as happy as I was, that I wasn't freezing cold all the time. I will also say that as the years went on and as my symptoms went on and I kept having a doctor tell me, you're okay, you're normal, you're fine, I just felt so ashamed of my symptoms, and I thought my body was so weak, and I felt betrayed by my body, and I'd have like negative self-talk, and I started to hide my symptoms from my husband, because I would tell him, I think something's wrong. I have this, and I have this, and I have this, and I'd be like, I'm gonna go see a doctor, and he'd be like, yeah, and I'd go, and the doctor was telling me I was fine, and I'd have to tell my husband that my doctor's telling me I'm fine, and so I would try to act fine, but I wasn't fine. And so obviously I've learned so much since then. I've learned to listen to my body, to consult another doctor, to get second opinions or third opinions, or to find other ways to find answers. So I'm kind of jumping around all over the place. I'm sorry, but back to seeing a naturopath. So she ran a slew of tests, and stuff started popping up that was not going right with my body. And she's like, I'm gonna order some ultrasounds of your organs. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went in for ultrasound of my organs, and they did an ultrasound of my thyroid, and they got the results back. So based on the results of the ultrasound of my thyroid, they referred me to an endocrinologist, and I made an appointment. I got a referral, went in, and he diagnosed me with Hashimoto's based on my ultrasound alone. He could see the tissue damage. He explained to me what Hashimoto's was, explained to me that diet and lifestyle that there's no proof that matters, and which I'm laughing because I'm living proof that diet and that nutrition and that lifestyle and that mindset matter. But at the time, I was sitting in his office feeling pretty darn broken emotionally and physically, and hearing him tell me, and well, by this time I knew to ask all kinds of questions like, what can I do? Well, there's got to be something. And so part of me was like rejoicing that, yes, I finally have a diagnosis. I'm gonna do all this, and I'm gonna get this under control, and I'm a fighter, and I got this. And then I was crushed a few moments later when he told me, there's no pill I can take to fix this. There's no medication I need yet. There's no cure, and to live with the symptoms. He didn't say live with the symptoms, but that's basically what he said. He's like, there's nothing that we can do. You just need to wait until you need medicine for your thyroid levels, which I was almost at that point, but not quite. And so he's going to have me come back in for testing. And at this point I said, hey, can we go ahead and do the blood test just to confirm the Hashimoto's diagnosis? I just wanted to make sure. So he ordered the blood test as a TPO blood test, and my antibodies were elevated. They showed Hashimoto's. And so I walked out of his office after being told that diet doesn't matter. Oh, he did say that some people say that a gluten-free diet helps. And I looked at him like, Doc, I've been gluten-free for a lot of years, and I'm like this. And so it was hard. And so it was hard. I mean, I was scared. I didn't want to live like that anymore. I had lost the life that I once had. I couldn't be the wife, the mom, the woman, the friend, the daughter that I once was, because I couldn't even do, basic things. I had to rest when walking up the stairs. I had to rest after taking a shower. I went from doing intense, crazy circuit training workouts to not being able to walk around the block at a decent speed. Like I would do it at a snail's pace and have to stop and rest. So there's a lot of shame involved. There's a lot of heartache involved. There's a lot of grief involved. There's a lot of fear involved. So if you are where I was and you're facing all of those things, if you're feeling all of those things, please know that you are not alone, that I felt them too, and that there is hope. And even if your doctor told you the things that my doctor told me, nutrition matter, lifestyle matter, mindset matters. There's so much that you can do. Maybe there's no cure. Maybe you're never gonna get the life that you once had back, but you can rebuild your life into something incredible, into something beautiful. And it starts with your habits. It starts with breaking those bad, unhealthy habits that you know that you need to break, and replacing them with healthier habits. And I know I was there. I mean, I was addicted to caffeine. I was addicted to Diet Coke. I was addicted to sugar. I was addicted to Cherry Coke. And those are things that help me function. Those are things that got me through my day when I felt horrible. And my caffeine addiction got me through years, I think. And then ibuprofen. I would pop ibuprofen like all the time because of my joint pain and my muscle pain. And I don't think I've taken ibuprofen in almost 2 years now. So I was diagnosed in January 2008, almost 2 years ago. So I started the autoimmune protocol, the AIP, which if you don't know, it's a diet and lifestyle protocol for those suffering with autoimmune disease. And I will link an article below if you are not familiar with it that can give you all the details about it. I found tremendous relief from my symptoms on the AIP. I has a special place in my heart because I've been able to rebuild my life into something so beautiful. I've done so many things that I wasn't sure if I was ever going to do again because of the AIP and because of the choices that I've made each day since I started it, as far as nutrition and lifestyle. And those little choices that we make each day, they may take time to pay off. It wasn't overnight for me. It was very gradual. I did see some drastic improvements, within a couple months, but to this day, it's been, even though I have reintroductions now on the AIP, my health continues to improve and improve and improve. So don't underestimate the power of the little choices that you make every day, as far as what you put into your mouth, how you treat your body, prioritizing, sleep, managing stress. All of those things, they matter, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Your diagnosis, your disease, it may be incurable, but nutrition and lifestyle and mindset can feel like a cure, and they can improve your health. But just take it a day, a day at a time, a little bit, and you'll get there. So how did I find the autoimmune protocol? How did I find the AIP? So within days of my diagnosis, my naturopath gave me a list. She had looked up what foods that I should and shouldn't eat based on my condition, and she gave me a list. And it didn't have a name on it. It didn't say anything. And I took that list, and by now I knew to do my homework. So I Googled all of these things I was looking at. And from my Google search, I found the AIP, the autoimmune protocol, which was very similar to the list that she'd given me. And I followed that. And I didn't know there was an incredible AIP community. I didn't know there was AIP cookbooks. I didn't know there was AIP bloggers. I didn't know there was others following this that I could find online. And so I started it feeling very alone and feeling very lonely, which is why I do what I do now. And I create resources to help you on your autoimmune journey, to help you on your AIP journey, because of how alone I felt at first. And so, and I feel it's an honor to share, and it's an honor to walk this path with you. And so I'm so grateful for that. So I took my list of AIP foods to eat and AIP foods not to eat. And at first I freaked out, like, what on earth am I going to eat? Like, I don't know if I can do this. So if you're feeling like you don't know if you can do this, I've been there. You can do this. If I can do this, you can do this. So I took my list to the grocery store, and I fumbled my way through starting it. I kept it very, very basic for my meals. I would pick a protein off of the include list. I would pick some vegetables, some healthy fats, and I would eat some fruit. So I limited what fruit I ate at first. So you may want to be mindful about how much fruit you're eating so that you don't eat too much fruit and throw off your blood sugar. I just kept the AIP incredibly simple at first, protein, veggies, fats, and a little bit of fruit. And I created my own list of my favorite proteins, not only like the different types, but the different cuts of meat. And I put down, all my favorite AIP spices, and then I put down all my favorite AIP veggies, and then I put down my favorite AIP fats and my favorite AIP fruits, and I would just start like mixing and matching stuff. And I just kept it like really simple, and I could roast things, I could, do like one skillet meals, I could pan fry stuff. I would just kind of switch up how I would cook things too. So if you are facing your diagnosis and you've been told that there's nothing that you can do, just live with the symptoms, I encourage you to get stubborn, to get stubborn on your wellness journey and think, I'm going to eat in a way that my body has no choice but to feel better. I'm going to live in a way that my body has no choice to feel better, and I'm going to stay positive while I'm doing it. Yeah, my life feels like it's over. My life feels like I'm mourning and I'm grieving, and those things are okay. I was angry, I was bitter, I grieved, I mourned. Give yourself that. Allow yourself grace. Lean on your faith, but please know that there is hope, that mindset matters. We'll try to think about, how am I going to grow from this? How am I going to become a better person through this? What do I need to learn to get me there? And I have to say, I walked out of my endocrinologist like office like a warrior, like, I don't think so. This is not how my story ends. I'm not gonna live like this. I wanted to go see my son's baseball games. I can't do that anymore. I want to take my daughter rock climbing. I can't do that anymore. I want to travel again. I can't do that anymore. I want to go on date night. I can't really do that anymore. I want to go grocery shopping. I'm struggling to do that anymore. I wanted so much more, and I couldn't accept that this was how my story ends. And so I got stubborn, and I gave my body no choice but to feel better as far as nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset. So one of the questions I get sometimes is if I take thyroid medicine, and I don't. So at the time of my diagnosis, my thyroid levels were not at a level where my endocrinologists were going to prescribe me thyroid medicine. And so my endocrinologist thought that I was going to need to be on medicine shortly for my thyroid. And so he had me come back within 3 to 6 months for testing. And he was expecting that I was going to need to be on medicine at that point. Like I said, I started AIP within days of my diagnosis, and I went back in for testing, and I did not need to be on medicine. It's been almost 2 years since my diagnosis, and I have not needed it yet. I say yet because I don't know how my journey, continues. I'm doing the best that I can do, but Hashimoto's is a lifelong diagnosis, and it usually does lead to hypothyroidism. And so if I get to a point where I need to take medicine where my thyroid levels are showing that I need some thyroid medicine, I will take it. I don't think there's any shame in taking medicine. I just haven't been at a point yet that I needed to take it. If you are on thyroid medicine and you haven't changed nutrition or lifestyle yet, but you want to, because I do know people who are on thyroid medication and they still have symptoms, and so they start changing nutrition and lifestyle in order to help with those symptoms, and they do, find relief from them. But I would just say that you need to work closely, in my opinion, you need to work closely with your medical team, with your endocrinologist, as you make changes to your lifestyle and the way that you eat, because they may need to adjust your thyroid medicine